Hi, everyone. This is the second part of a two-part episode. So if you haven't heard the first one, please go back to our feed, give that one a listen, and come back to this one. Enjoy. It's time to take a therapeutic dose, a prescription-strength reality TV podcast that explores the intersection of reality TV and therapy. Possible side effects may include entertainment, strong emotional reactions, and/or laughter. Here are your hosts, Ramona Ramirez and Margie McGee. Oh, God. Then we just take a one-way ticket to never mind. I was going to say something really mean and go full coastal elite, and I'm just going to shut the fuck up. No one needs to
Listen,
hear my judgment.
Tamara and Eddie ride motorcycles to a burger shack and talk about Big Bear. Okay, like we
I
get it.
know.
This is who
I
they are.
know. Like, nothing wrong with Big Bear. I loved going to Big Bear when I lived in LA. It was so close. You and I had a great time in Big
We had a
Bear.
great weekend up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the drive is really gnarly. I'm always like super car sick
Barf
once I get
Central.
there.
Yeah.
But then
Uh-huh.
like 20 minutes later after that wears off, I'm like, this is gorgeous.
Uh-huh.
But look, this is where Tamara, rewrites history and claims that her beef with
Oh,
Shannon has
my
nothing to do with
God.
Trace Amigas, and now is
Honestly.
crying, saying she's mad that she really thought Shannon would get help, but she's still drinking. And Eddie weirdly has like a couple moments of real wisdom in this scene where he goes,
I mean,
yeah, he says Shannon
yeah.
may not have hit her rock bottom yet, and it's not personal to you, Tamara. It's not your problem. It's Shannon's problem. And I was like, Eddie, this Reuben sandwich has brought like a real sage out of you.
I wrote like Eddie, oh Eddie, if only, and agreed. Like I totally agreed, and it's like that's why I had to go to Al-Anon for so many years, because don't take her behavior personally. I still take people's behavior personally that I
Always.
shouldn't take.
Always my
Yeah.
first instinct is to be like,
Mm-hmm.
this is about me. If I was better, if I did something different, this wouldn't have happened. But,
I had some thoughts about like when Tamara is filling him in on Heather's party. He asks about Shannon and she starts to cry. And she says she's still so angry and she's frustrated and thinks that Shannon is lying to everybody. And I don't think, with every fiber in my being, I don't think, and I'm sure this is not going to be a revelatory whatever to anyone listening. Like, again, I don't know why these things hit me like a ton of bricks when I watched for the third time, but Tamara is not coming from a place of concern or even respect for Shannon. She's crying tears of disgust or even tears of anger that people are believing what Shannon is telling them about her current reality.
I mean, I don't even know if it's that deep. It just feels like what she came at Shannon with at Heather's party didn't land. And so now she has to find a new angle. Because at Heather's party, she said, you're a horrible person. You did horrible things to me. And when I'm sure the producers were like, what? And Tamara was like, So now she has to be like, actually, it's about the fact that I'm really worried about her and I really want her to get help that she needs. And she's lying. It's like, you don't care about anything. I didn't believe any
I
of
didn't
it.
either. I don't think that Tamara Judge is capable of being hurt. I think she's capable of being embarrassed. I think she's capable of being humiliated. I think she is committed to controlling her narrative. I mean, we're all to some extent, like no one likes feeling like they're being misjudged or mischaracterized. Is that a real
Mm-hmm.
statement? Okay.
Yes.
If she hates being hated or judged by certain people, like the Heather Dubrows of the world, you know. But hurt, like real feelings, I don't think so. And just like Sophie said, get a fucking therapist.
Yeah.
Get a therapist.
Well, then they move on to gossip about Jen getting evicted. And they cut to this flashback at Shred's gym where Jen is telling Tamara and Emily, this broke my heart. She says, sometimes I think I should have just kept my head down and stayed in my marriage, basically. And Tamara in that moment reassures Jen that she'll get through it. But it just was like, and part of me, I think part of why I reacted to that is I was like, I think you should have. I just think Ryan is such a bad guy. And I think now that's not even a supposition, that's confirmed. But
It's
like, I think you
confirmed.
should have kept your head down and stayed in your marriage. Because like, what is this mess? Your kids are
Yeah.
moved in with Ryan, who's just
Oh
like
my
a
god.
performative monster who's never used a dishwasher in 6 years. You've never had a party, you've never had people
I
over. What's
I
happening? What are you? It freaked
he's
me out.
hiding things. Yeah,
Everything.
he's
He's all skeletons and everything's a closet.
her kids are not happy. The scene really triggered, like, my Al-Anon stuff and really triggered the reason why I once I made the decision to do ketamine, like, I knew I had to do it sooner rather than later. Part of why I did ketamine is because I would project so much onto kids that I perceived were in distress.
Mm.
Like, if I was in a Target, even when, like, Leo would still willingly come with me to Target and we would be having a good time, like, walking around looking at stuff, if I heard a child start to cry or scream, I would automatically think, "Oh, they're not like, at best, they're not being acknowledged by their caretakers, their needs are being ignored, or at worst, they're being treated poorly." And my blood would physically run cold, and I would just, like, not know where I was standing. I would just, like, quasi disassociate, and I would then forget about my own child for a second, not because I wanted to or was being selfish in the moment, just because I was overtaken emotionally by what I was hearing, not knowing anything that is going on. I mean, I know that from my own experience raising a small child, it's like that's what they do sometimes. Like, no, we are not going to go down the Nerf aisle. "Ah, I want to, like that's all it could have been. But I would just get taken out. So my point is that this scene really triggered me. I just got prickly even before this scene was like 10 seconds in,
I
That
mean,
that
I do wanna say leading into
yes,
it,
please, please,
Eddie had
please
one
go.
more
Yes.
little note of wisdom
Oh, I'm so sorry,
where no,
Margie. I'm
that's
so
fine. It's
sorry.
we're heading right there, but Tamara said, "Do you think Ryan's pulling Jen down?" And Eddie, in his, again, weird moment
Yes.
of wisdom, said, "Always. If you hang around with liars, you're gonna be a liar. That's just the way it works." And I was like, put it on a t-shirt, like,
I
let's
wrote,
fucking
yeah.
go, Eddie. Like that's the truth. And like that's the message I wish everyone knew, because there's plenty of people in my life who think they're the exception. They're like, I'm an honorable person. Yes, I hang out with liars, but I'm not one. And it's like you are
Mhm.
the sum total of the 8 people closest to you. I forget whose philosophy that is, but I believe that to be
Oh.
true. And
Oh.
if if the 5 to 8 of the people close to you are liars, that's who you are. And
Right.
I do, it's
Right.
true. And Jen has started lying. That weird comment on the stairs when someone asks, "What does Ryan do?" Instead of saying, like, "I'm not really sure, but he has a ton of money," she goes, "A real estate mortgage, nothing, dreamer." It's like, oh my God.
Totally.
Like
So she's
you're
regurgitating
becoming.
his lies,
Yes.
and she knows in her soul,
Yes.
like, I don't understand, like, the warning bells and the red flags that she must encounter on a daily basis,
But she has
but
no options.
she's
That's what I really see, is she
yeah,
got evicted, and so her options are Ryan or nothing. That's it. She can't be on the
God,
show if she moves back to Oklahoma. Like, I don't know. I don't know what I would do if I was in her
I don't
position.
either. That's a really
So,
good
if I
question.
had
That's a
4
really
kids
right.
and nowhere to go and my only income is this show, I think I move in with Ryan too. But the kids, like you said, look, it
They're the
triggered my
collateral
Al-Anon
damage.
stuff of, like, they're putting on a show, and Jen acknowledged it in her confessional, saying everyone's minding their P's and Q's as we introduce ourselves to someone else's home. But the way those kids were moving through that house, I recognize with my whole spirit how exhausting it is, the level of performance you're putting on, the commitment to the performance, looking to please your mom. Did I do it right? Did I do okay? Is the liquor cabinet thing funny? It is, right? Okay, good. And like it's just, and his weird assumption of authority of like, you tell your mom sorry, Dominic. It's like you just shut your mouth. Like you just step back and let Jen raise her kids. They live with
Yeah,
you, but you're not their dad. Again, all of my own stuff. But
totally. I just like, when he said, "We parent differently," I don't even wanna know what that means. I don't even wanna know what
and
that
it was
fucking
so
means.
judgmental.
It was awful.
It was
And
so cruel.
and
he goes,
she
"You and I parent a
knew.
little differently, and that's okay." And I was like,
No,
"No, it's
he
not, because what you just said
nope.
is I parent better than you." That's what you just said. You can
I
use whatever
figured
words you
he
want, but yeah,
parented with more violence. That was what I but again, I
without a
project.
doubt.
I project.
You
He
project, but
parents with shame and humiliation
yes.
and
And
threats.
Jen doesn't have any daughters, does she? Because
Oh, I
I
don't
also worry
remember.
about that.
Oh, yeah, because what my Tan Ryan source told me is that Tan Ryan approved or encouraged his then underage teenage daughter to get plastic surgery.
Yeah, I believe that. And I believe he sexualizes them, and I believe he harms them verbally or physically if he loses it. He has a very, what's his face? Teresa Giudice's, Louis. It's that same energy of, like, when the cameras are on, I'm, like, doing something. But there's so much energy behind it that I know that what's going on for real is gnarly
Yeah,
because you're really aware of the cameras and how you are in front of them, which makes me think
yeah,
that off camera, something very different
yeah,
happens.
yeah, for sure. Uh, Brian jokingly horsing around with Jen's 17-year-old son, Dawson, about the liquor cabinet. Like, I'm not saying that teenagers aren't alcohol curious. I know. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that isn't normal. I don't know if it was, like, normal
So
for
funny.
me because my friends were alcohol curious and because I wanted to be liked and accepted by my friends,
I think
I went
that's
along with it
normal.
too. I yeah, it prob but,
Just
like
because I honestly only say that because I'm like, "Oh, was I was raised so dysfunctionally, like, maybe I got it wrong," but then I'm like, "No, but it was on every teen TV show." Like,
okay.
Luke was a bad guy for Brenda, RIP,
Uh,
both of them, because,
oh my
he
god,
drank a
yeah.
beer or something. So,
Right.
anyways,
If it is, in fact, a universal teenage experience and not that Dawson feels the need to cope with his current circumstances by drinking them down, like, that was what I was projecting, you know? I didn't like the "Hyuk, hyuk, hyuk," thing about it, like, "Oh, take a screenshot of that." Like, ew.
and also
He's
the way
evil.
he eased into that, he said, "I told mom to take a screenshot of that." He didn't say, "I told your mom to." He said, "I told mom." I'm like, "Ew, you're so over familiar." My dad
Yeah.
had a lot of girlfriends like that who would talk to me like
Ugh.
they were already just gonna be in my life forever, and I was like, "You don't know anything. I know your lifespan here, lady, and it is not a long shelf life."
Oh
So
my god, Margie. Ugh.
Lyle and Patricia and all of them. Yes, a lady named
Yeah.
Lyle. Anyways, God.
I when yes, and when they asked for the apology from Dom, it was like they were asking for it, but they weren't explaining why or the repercussions of what can happen if you lie to your parents. I don't give a fuck what he says to that guy that's not his dad. I
Well, I
just want
think, yeah.
him to grow up feeling safe
Well, and
and
it felt like
understanding, like, the reason why we do stuff versus just you do it,
I think he
you
got that.
know?
Like the relationship between Dominic and Jen seemed like I think that phone call with Dominic, I think he hung up because he knew he understood what he did wrong and he was coming
Okay.
home because they're just
Yeah.
this has probably happened before. And I thought Jen's touch was right. Like she wasn't harsh on him because they are
Mhm.
in a new environment and this is really weird and I want to get on a dirt bike and ride away too.
Oh my
So
god.
but she did the right thing to have him apologize because he but without punishment seemed appropriate. But to involve Ryan, not to involve Ryan, Ryan involved himself in that
He
moment
did.
in a way that was just absolutely out of line. Like they're in your house, and that's just a scary thing as a little kid anyway, to be in a new authority figure's space. It's just scary.
Oh
So,
god.
anyways.
I don't know if you noticed that, like, the expressions of, like okay, again, I was projecting, and I didn't think this was I was not looking for this, but it was palpable to me, the relief the children felt when their grandparents walked in the
Yes.
door. Like, here is
And
my
bless Jen for knowing that, and
right.
getting him there.
here are my, like, look who's just walked in, my emotional and stability giving touchstones coming in hot. And, like, my heart just like, hurt so much from, like, what those kids were getting from their grandparents walking in versus what they, again, projecting hardcore, but it just looked like they're like Dawson, the 17-year-old boy, his face just all I could see was, like, little Dawson, like, so relieved that his safe people were there
I
in
mean,
this
I think
unsafe
if Jen had
environment.
actually listened to her kids, they would have moved to Oklahoma and lived with her parents.
They
Their
did not
dad
wanna
is
move in with
there.
Ryan. Yeah.
No, 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 I don't even think Jen does. Like, it's just such a weird, sad,
Oh,
destabilizing
God.
situation, and I'm really glad that she did call the grandparents in because I agree with you, the whole energy changed, and Ryan's the odd one out. Ryan's the one who's still, like, smiling big and eyes real wide and doing a show, and it's just it was weird, and then the kids all take off and Um, Jen starts crying, saying that at 46, her parents shouldn't have to keep taking care of her the way that they do. Because without, it sounds like without financial rescue from her dad, Jen would have been, on the streets with her kids and embroiled in eviction proceedings for the foreseeable
Mhm.
future.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
then Jen apologizes to her dad and mom for having to save her. And then her mom said something. And this was where I got a little projection moment of my own from my upbringing. The mom says to Jen, "You did what you had to do. You found Ryan." And I was like, oh my message from the 80s. You found someone to rescue you. And, but this is the danger of this was the message we got as kids, like find a man and you'll be safe. And the mom seemed legitimately relieved. You found Ryan. Right. But we didn't know at that point that his money all came in through white collar crime. So like this isn't a rescue. This isn't a safety net. This is a disaster, a
It's a
more
disaster.
intense disaster, a more destabilizing disaster for those kids than
Oh my
anything that's
god.
already happened, which has all been horrible. A divorce, an affair, a giant move, an eviction. Like it's just, yeah, that really, I was like, oh, mom. And Jen tries
All
to fight
I'm
back. She's like, it's not just
right.
Ryan, it's you guys. And she was like, sure, it's us too. But it's like, ugh,
Yeah, her mom, like, really deriding for Tan Ryan so hard really was just so disturbing. And
Oklahoma, baby. That's
when
the value
yeah,
system
that
there.
makes sense. When Jen asks her mom, "How do you think the kids are?" I was all, "Bitch, the call is coming from inside the house. Stop asking other people what you already know the answer to. They're not okay. You're not okay. This is
Right.
not okay. It's not okay."
It's not, but it's
Yeah.
like one of 2 terrible options. It's just the spot she's in, and then they
Yeah.
cut to so much dog poo in the yard that, like, I couldn't even believe it. I was
Oh
so
god, I miss that.
because the dad was like, "We're here to help you any way we can." The mom's like, "I'll dig a ditch for you if I have to," and I was like, "Put Ryan in it." And then the dad was like, "But we're not gonna pick up your dog poo," and they cut to a shot of the backyard that's just, like, cartoonishly peppered with huge piles of dog shit, and I was like, "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my
Oh
god.
my god.
Clean up
Oh
your poo."
god.
You know how I feel about dog poo, just,
I
like,
know,
even
I
if it's in your
know.
own yard, like, if you have a dog, clean it up. Okay,
No, of course, of course. Hi,
then we go to this
Heather and
dumb
Shannon at
yeah,
Sapphire.
yeah.
I I want to go on record to say that I very much could see myself saying to waitstaff at a restaurant if I was on a cold patio, "Could you move that, like, literally next to me so much that I run the chance of catching on fire?" Like, I can see myself saying that. So I just wanna admit that I share that nano mini bite of humanity with Heather Dubrow.
Yeah, but it doesn't with you, it comes with, like, genuine like, levity. With Heather, it feels like, "Or I'll kill you." Do you know what I mean? The
Oh,
subtext is
shit.
always like right? And even the fire engine going by, she was like, "Ha, ha, 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 get it out of here." Like, she
Yeah.
tries to, pretend like she's
Oh,
lighthearted, but
interesting.
she's such a control freak that she hated being outside. She walked up and she was like, "Brr, it's freezing." Like, she can't control the temperature, she can't control the sound, she can't control how close the fire is to her. Like, she was really uncomfortable, and I kinda like
I
it.
thought she had a coat on her arm too, like, put it
She
on?
did.
I don't
Thank you.
understand.
She said
Why
her
do we
coat
need
was
to
her
see
purse. I don't know.
it's just like that top was nothing that you needed to write home about or that I need to see on screen. I think it was Prada, again, boring, but, like,
Great.
I don't know, it was like a conservative white blouse with black trim. Put on your
Yeah.
cute it looked like she had, like, a glossy faux fur coat.
I
I
don't think
live for nights I get to wear my glossy faux furs.
I have a feeling Heather didn't know they were gonna be seated outside, and I think that's why she was trying to be hilarious about this new predicament they find themselves in with fire trucks and weather and, anyways, I just don't care for her. This scene to me wasn't, like, that interesting. You know, Shannon notes that it hurts her feelings that Heather defends Alexis and says that, if the roles were reversed, she wouldn't be inviting Terry's new girlfriend to events. But Heather remains defensive, and Shannon says that there's old anger there too. And Heather goes, "Oh, because I was talking about your relationship, don't you know that I don't do that? Like I didn't never repeated what was in our vault. I kept your confidence always." And I was like, she just started talking and she said, "I don't want an apology. I just need to hear from you that you trust who I am and what I say and that we can have a friendship." And I was like, that's brainwashing language. Rather than being on the receiving end of an apology, you want her to pledge to you that I from here forward, I trust everything you say and I will never question anything. It's like, that's crazy, right?
I I, yeah, I mean, I went full on projecting with this one too, and probably definitely Alan on projecting. I just the first thing that struck me about Heather in this scene is that she didn't give a shit about anything that Shannon was telling her. She was only trying to bring up the, "Did you really say to Tamara before the reunion last year, 'Let's take Heather Dubrow down?'" That was all she wanted to find out the answer to at this dinner,
Well, and as a way
and
of controlling Shannon to be like, "I know you have beef with me, but
mm,
let me just tell you this. So
mhm, mhm.
stay in your lane." So rude.
Tamra to uh, both of these women, if they're not automatically assuming that the common denom in this sitch is fucking Tamra Judge, they're both real they're heavily in denial and ignorant, and, like, yeah, I felt like, again, I'm projecting on Shannon, when she gets that voice and that look like, "Well,
Mhm.
I'm sorry." Like, she had that. She busts out with it a couple times this season. We might see it more this season because she's being called so hard on her shit because of her DUI. I noticed that she brought out that expression and that way she verbalizes that stuff, and it just seems, like, steeped in a childhood trauma response of coping. And then, yeah, Heather says she doesn't want to apology. This is her story, and this is her tape in her head, and this is how Heather victimizes herself. This is her constant tape is, "You need to see me. You need to see who I am, and you need to recognize me as the person I am." And I just wonder who didn't see her? Who didn't, you know, who who planted in Heather Dubrow's head that she wasn't worthy of being or that people didn't see her or recognize her for
Have
who
you
who
met
she
remember
is?
her mom? We've seen her a
Her
couple
mom.
times. Her mom is
Yeah.
more awful than Heather, and she's
Yeah.
awful to Heather on camera. So it's like,
Mhm.
yeah, you got away from that, you got really rich, you thought that would solve all your problems, but you have to control everything.
Everything.
Otherwise, someone might talk to you the way your mom did.
And it's
Does.
all yeah, and it's all image. It's all if my image is protected and manicured and curated and presented perfectly, which, I mean, doesn't SpawnCon kind of seem below someone like the perception that Heather wants to have of her, SpawnCon doesn't seem like it
It's more
fits.
visibility, and the stuff she chooses is Life 360. Like, I'm a really good mother, so I track my children. Like, she chooses things that are like, my body's perfect, so I use this weight loss product, like, it's all
Mhm.
things that, like, you know, she's not doing like
Mm-mm.
vibrators or like, whatever.
Yeah,
She's
you're right.
choosing things that match the things that she wants to amplify about herself and her
Oh my
story.
god. I don't think Sutton Strack is doing Notes BonCon. Is she? And I just don't know it because
I have no
I don't know if I
idea.
follow
But if she
her
was, I
on
feel like
my
she'd do it the way like Snoop Dogg does things. It's like, "Oh, that seems fun." Like, I don't think she'd go through a whole rigmarole
yeah,
thinking about it. I think she'd be like, "The check is right and that seems fine. So yeah, let's go.
totally.
I'll sell your horse saddle. I like horses, like I don't know. Anyways, I have my eye on the clock a little bit, so
Oh,
maybe
yes. Oh my gosh. Yes,
it's
yes,
fine.
yes,
We'll blow
please.
through this scene at the deck unless you had anything interesting. This is Gina, Katie,
I
and Emily talking, gossiping more about Jen's eviction, and Gina saying that she's going to meet up with her, and Jen needs to be more focused on how she's going to take care of her kids and herself, and not trying to assign blame for her own problems. If Jen comes for my career, I'll fuck her up. And I was like, Jen's not coming for anything. She has no money and nowhere to go. She's in no position to come for you, you idiot.
right, right. I I don't know. My main notes were, "What the fuck is a hero spritz?"
Yeah.
Katie forgoes any kind of foreplay before just diving right in for the gossip. She spends 2 seconds talking about how tall and how old she is, how dare you on both, and then it's like, bam, what the fuck is up with Jen moving in with Tan Ryan? And I felt so bad for how they were going hard on Jen, but then I had like this Cher snap out of it moment, like, dude, there were clues. The call is coming from inside the house. Listen, Yogini, if you are practicing what you preach, trust that intuition. And she's not. So I don't know.
Wait, what do you
And then
mean?
Emily, like, when they were going in hard on Jen, I started to feel bad. But then it's like, I feel like she knows what is going on, but
But
she's
the
not doing
eviction,
anything about it, you know?
yeah. And I hope the eviction is a bottom for her. But however, moving in
Yeah,
with Ryan is confusing. But I think I don't know. I just think those ladies could stand to feel a little more bad for her. Like, it's a terrible thing that's happened. Like, you
yeah,
don't get evicted if you have any money. You
right.
don't get evicted if you have any
Yes,
resources anywhere else to go. You get evicted
right.
because the only place that you found you now can no longer afford. So, them saying things like, better take a picture of her car because they're going to repo that bitch. You
That
better fucking
was
get in a house. It's like, that's so mean. And again,
yeah,
when the day comes that your life falls apart, because that's what happens, it will happen to you guys. So, enjoy this moment, Gina, of relishing in someone else's devastating pain. Because a year ago, yeah, Tamara and Vicky were doing it at your expense. So I guess now you're cycling into the girl role. But like, from what I've observed, life continues to cycle and you're going to get another round of being at the bottom and
yeah,
everyone will cycle back up to the top. But I would love to see one of these women hit a bottom, come to the top and extend a hand down instead of just, you know, with their hands behind their back looking down, being like, you're gross down there. I was down there once
yeah,
and it's so
totally,
gross down there. And you only get down there
totally,
because you're a fucking asshole. Like,
totally.
this scene, yeah, I was disgusted. I didn't like
I I
any of them, including, yeah, didn't like any
I
of them. I
think
don't know who Emily is in this episode.
I just don't I feel so much for Jen and the eviction. I can't imagine what it's like to be financially dependent on someone like that, and you don't feel like you have any other choices. And yeah, it's like a roof over your kid's head. Does she not have money to even afford like
She
a
makes
small
$50 a class. And
dude?
her
Yeah,
credit, she has no credit because she's never bought anything. Her husband did all that. And that's what I'm saying
so
is like
gnarly.
everybody could land here. And like you're saying, that's why they come at it so hard because they're so afraid of it. Like everybody has the opportunity to be Bernie Madoff, you know? You can invest so
100%.
wisely and you can be fucking flat ass broke. Like
Yep,
life isn't fair and shit
yep,
happens. And if you're the kind of person who, when it happens to someone else, you make jokes about their car being repoed, like, may God have fucking mercy on you when what it might not be financial, whatever destruction comes your way. But like the nobody gets out of life unscathed, no matter how rich you are. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, her husband had a shit ton of money and then they got divorced because Jen had an affair and the family removed him from his position in their company because he's no longer part of the family. He didn't get other work. He had no money to support Jen. Like it's everyone's responsible on some level, but yeah, I just thought it was a really nasty vibe on the deck. Especially from
It
Gina,
was.
who is so newly emerging from a whole mire of shit, and for her to be the one leading the charge, it's
It's
just
because
gross.
she's projecting, and we definitely see that in the last scene of the
Oh my
episode.
god.
That yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
she
should we
wanna go
go
to
into it? Yeah.
Lola's cafe.
Mhm.
I mean, Gina is just she's so fucking resentful. She is so resentful, and she has one person to that she's blaming for everything going wrong in her life right now, someone that she's known for a year, 2 years, and
I
just,
mean, the
like,
way
she's
she
gonna give
has
it to her.
never yelled at Matt, which is understandable because he beat her. So, of course, she's not going to yell at him. I think she sees Jen and she's like, here's a place I can let it rip, and I'm gonna. And
Absolutely.
I don't care what you have to say.
Absolutely.
I'm not here to listen. And that's essentially what she said when she stormed out. She's like, "You're not listening." And it's like, "You're not listening." But that's not why you came.
You're not
Gina
listening.
didn't come to
Mm-mm.
listen. She came to yell at someone who's in such a dark place that she has no ground to stand on to holler
Yeah.
back. So,
Oh my god.
yeah,
I
Gina, oh,
mean,
sorry, go ahead.
no, I validate how resentful Gina is. Like,
Sure.
if Jen is walking in and it does look like she got full glam and she does look like she's wearing brand new clothes, listen, if we're gonna give her the benefit of the doubt, med spas that are more affordable are a dime a dozen in Orange County.
Also, you can
Med
buy some
spas and
clothes at
you
Nordstrom, leave the tags on and bring
right.
them back. Like I
Or
also
you
it
can rent
doesn't
an outfit. Right.
and it
But
doesn't
it doesn't
unevict
matter.
her. She doesn't have anywhere to
Right.
live. If Ryan kicks her out, there's nowhere for her to go. So like
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
just and I also don't think it's about what I think it's about Gina feeling like if you're going to be low down like I was, then you should be kicked for your shitty hair extensions too. It's
Yeah.
like, let your
Yeah.
story be your story and her story be her story.
Yeah.
You're doing
Yeah.
great now, Gina. Like, don't
Totally.
I can't believe how, oh God, just so mean.
She's really, really mean. She's really, really mean. And I oh, no, please, Margie, please.
No, I was just going to
No, what
say that she just goes off and says, you need to grow up. You need to pay your bills. You need to figure out how to take care of yourself and your children. And it's not your ex husband's responsibility and it's not your boyfriend's responsibility. And I was like, talking to yourself much.
talking to yourself much.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
100%.
yeah, she's
100%.
mad at herself, which most resentments are reflective of some, something, some shame in ourselves that we have not addressed and loved ourselves out of. And so she unloaded everything that she either did or thinks of herself. And I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just,
And she's projecting her own feelings of guilt about splitting up her blended family. And yeah, she's looking in a mirror with Jen and she hates it. And she
mhm.
doesn't have the insight to know that's what she's doing. And that's where
Yeah,
we
that's
end.
true.
That's where we
Yeah,
end.
and she said, "You're not paying rent, and that's putting me in a bad situation." And Jen's like, "I'm not paying rent because I have no money. Who's in a bad situation?" Like,
Yeah.
like, it's just and again, I don't it's like, Jen needs to get her shit together, but Gina needed to get her shit together a few years ago, and she had Travis to lean on. She understands why you take on a partner that eventually you'll leave, like when you're in a bad spot, like this could have gone so different and Gina could have been such a hero and she really chose a different path and I don't know, I just find it unforgivable.
She chose a different path wearing a bad hat.
What were the letters on it?
It said RB, and I was wondering if it was Rag& Bone. I can Google it,
Oh,
and I
no, I
guess,
bet
like,
you're
if
right.
I bet if we are
It has
to
a Rag& and Bone
follow
look.
Luann de Lesseps' logic, like, even Rag& Bone can make a mistake, and I love Rag& Bone. I do.
I think it Rag& and Bone doesn't suit Gina. Like, I
It
could
I
absolutely
just
see that hat in their catalog on their models, and I would be like, "That looks rad." But on Gina, it's like, "No,
I just
no."
yeah, I don't know if they would put a big RB embroidered on their hat in such a
Yeah, I
prolific
don't know
place.
either.
I don't either. I'll have to Google it and see.
Well, Gina's
But
last line
yes,
is she says, "This tells me everything I need to know, mostly that she's stupid." Talking about Jen, but talking about herself, if you
talking about
will.
herself, talking
So,
about herself.
anyways, amazing episode.
Yes, amazing episode. And again, we're gonna have to have this be a two-parter because, they give us a lot. They're giving us
They do. The
a lot.
most.
I'm so grateful. Margie, what else did you watch this week?
This week I watched Million Dollar Listing Los Angeles, which I'm really enjoying.
Oh God, I need to watch it. Yeah.
Um, and I watched the season premiere of Welcome to Plathville, which is that show about Mormons who the whole family has completely imploded, and now the mother lives on a houseboat with her 3 daughters. It's insane.
No, thank
And,
you.
yeah, it's crazy. I'm still watching Alone, which I really enjoy just as a study in, like, isolation and mental health. And, I think that's it. I watched Wimbledon. I finally finished the tournament ended, like, 2 weeks ago, but I finally watched the final, and it was amazing. So, yeah, that's what I watched. How about you?
Watched Owning Manhattan. Uh, watched, and this came out like probably in 2020 or 2021, maybe 2022. I'm not sure, but I had started watching How to Change Your Mind, the Michael Pollan
Oh,
3
yeah.
or 4-part documentary on Netflix about
Mhm.
psychedelics. And I watched the episode on MDMA. And all I'm going to say is that, oh, I could cry again. We have access to treatments that have been proven to work to help people with PTSD, and the current availability of antidepressants on the market that are covered by insurance or just, widely prescribed. Like, we have proven workable alternatives. And because of the fucking Reagans, we don't get them. People don't get them. I encourage everyone to watch that documentary, How to Change Your Mind. However you feel about Michael Pollan, I validate. It's just I'm enraged, and I'm fearful, and I'm sad for people that are out there struggling when they don't have to. But because of our puritanical government full of fear, in the pockets of lobbyists whose sole purpose is to dick ride for big pharma. And listen, I'm the first fucking person to throw a prescription at anything. I'm just saying, as someone that has struggled with the current offerings of antidepressants on the market, to see what a change has happened in me since introducing psychedelics. I ache for the years I had struggling, and I ache for the people that are currently struggling. And I will go to Congress and talk all the live long fucking day if I have to like change this. It's just so maddening to me. And if I can reframe it, I'm so grateful that there is hope once the stigma is removed from these things. So owning Manhattan, uh, and then
Quick transition.
the wildly right quick transition, and then yeah. So owning Manhattan, the last episode of How to Change Your Mind. There was something else, and I can't remember what it was. I guess it doesn't
Bachelorette?
matter. Oh, yeah. God, again, just I think
Forgettable.
this show is done. I think that this show is done. It's done. It's on. It's complete background noise. I feel terrible for
Yes.
this lead. This batch of men, every time I think a batch of men can't get worse, they do. So that's all I'll say. Yes. And what was your antidepressant this week?
My antidepressant this week, I think, having just talked about this episode, I think it's like kids. Like my goddaughter, I got some just, some pictures of her like enjoying her summer, and it had like a dopamine inducing effect on me.
Mm,
I got to talk to my niece who's overseas right now. I got to talk to her on the phone for a little while, and like that it always just like absolutely like any parts of my soul's balloon that are deflated when I get to talk to or see my niece and nephews, it's immediately filled. And I got to see some pictures of my sister and my nephews had a horrible travel day. They got involved in that global shutdown thing. So they were in the airport for
Oh,
like 16 hours.
shit.
And she kept sending me pictures of her kids just writing it out. These two teenage boys just like laying down on their backpacks, just like hanging out. I'm like, God, great, just good people. There's such good kids in my immediate circle. And I'm like, yeah, they are an antidepressant. I'm smiling, thinking about them, talking about them, and
You
that is an
totally are.
antidepressant. I just adore them
Mhm.
all, and I'm so proud of them, and I'm so lucky they're in my life. And like, as a person who it always makes people uncomfortable, but I'm going to try and start normalizing the story because it's not just mine. As someone who wanted to have kids and it didn't become part of her story, the value that other people's kids have in my life, I cannot express how huge it is when people are willing to share their kids so generously with me. I just love every one of them, you included. You know, I love Leo. Like, I think
He
garbage is
loves
the
you
most
too.
disgusting thing. And I've never talked about garbage juice more and loved it than hanging out with Leo. He makes me care about things that I didn't think were care aboutable. So, anyways,
That's real
kids,
sweet.
that's my
That's
antidepressant.
real sweet.
How about you?
Well, it was my birthday last week,
Yes,
and
happy birthday.
thank you. It turned out to be really lovely, and I was just so grateful for I was on the phone all day with people that don't live near me. I had brunch with Lee. It was beautiful. Josh and Leo took me to a lovely dinner, and it was just really just a lovely, lovely birthday week, you know? And then my husband and I had over the weekend, we had a long overdue day where, you know, we got a babysitter for Leo and we were just able to be together all day and really authentically reconnect. Because so many days, it's like we're both exhausted by the end of the day, by the time Leo goes to sleep. And it's just kind of like we're on the couch next to each other, or not even not even next to each other, like, you know, watching shitty TV because what else are you supposed to do? But anyway, I just left the day feeling just so close to him and so in love with him and with so
Mm,
much love for him, and I'm really grateful. So that is it was really nice to reconnect. Mhm.
I
Yeah.
love that. That's so
Thank you.
beautiful. And you guys
Yeah.
have been married a hella long time. So, like,
Almost 10 years. It'll be 10 years in September.
yeah,
October. Jesus
how
Christ. But
dare
yes,
you?
we've been together for a little over 13. So, yeah.
It's amazing to like revisit
Mhm.
that feeling. I'm so glad you took time to do that.
Me too. We needed it.
Yeah, I'm
So,
sure.
it was great. Yeah. I have a fantastic husband.
I
He's
adore you both.
everything I want. Yeah, I'm really
Oh,
grateful. I'm so grateful. Thank you. Thank you. And he adores you as well. I really and he acknowledges like we both, you know, talk about like your closest 8 people, like my closest 8 people and his closest 8 people, like I love them and feel loved by them and my 8 people love Josh, you know. Anyway, it's
I
just I'm
mean,
really grateful.
someday, since your anniversary is coming up, I might make you dig up your vows because I don't remember the specifics, but in your vows, I just remember being like, yes, because both of you said, I know everything about you, and I'm choosing today to marry all of the great parts and all of the bad parts. I know every flaw of yours, and I'm here to say, like, I'm doing this because of them, in spite of them, anyway, whatever. It was one of the most honest vows, like exchanges I've ever heard in my life. And I love a wedding and I always listen closely. And those have stayed with me all these years. I was like,
Oh,
oh, these two really mean it.
I need to
It's
dig
not
those up
just,
too. God, I hope I can
yeah,
found them. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
sure
I
there's a
think I
video or
can.
something, right?
I
They've got to
really
be
hope
somewhere.
so. Yeah.
Well, loosely translated, there was just
Yes.
you led with like beautiful, loving acceptance. That was like sort of the vibe of the event, and I loved it.
Yeah.
I love you
And
guys.
that's what we're continuing to cultivate. Thank you. We
Yeah.
love you too. You're a valuable member of our family.
Oh,
So, everyone, thank you so much for listening. This is just thrilling to discuss this riveting season so far. Just 2 episodes in, it's just like fucking amazing.
so
So,
good.
yes. Margie, I love you so much.
I love you too.
I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. And everyone else, take really good care of yourself. Notice when you're projecting, pay attention to those parts that need a little bit more tender, loving care and acceptance today. Start with yourself, start with the compassion for yourself before you try to give it to anybody else. It's way easier to give it to other people, but you deserve it just as much. That's all I got to say.
I love
Love you,
it.
friend.
I love you too. We'll talk next week, everybody.
Yes, we'll talk next week. All right. Bye.
Bye.
Ramona and Margie are obviously not doctors and do not provide medical advice. Their content is intended to be used for entertainment purposes only. It is not intended to be, should not be interpreted as, or used as a substitute for medical advice or a diagnosis of any health or fitness problem, condition, or disease, nor a recommendation for a specific test, doctor, care provider, procedure, treatment plan, product, or course of action.
My mom isn't a doctor.